So tell me a little bit about what led you to starting an Airbnb. And I think that's where you're recording right now, correct?
Yeah, I am actually. It's like the only quiet place in our home. So it's kind of turns into my office whenever somebody's not staying in there. Okay, perfect. So I went to school at TCU, ranch management, and then after that, I was in the feed yard industry for a couple of years, and I realized I needed to eventually come back home to the family operation. My dad's health wasn't in the best condition. He just went through chemo and radiation, and I knew I needed to return back home to be able to help him more. And I had to make a jump, kind of leave my corporate salary and figure out a way to come back to our family operation. And it wasn't quite big enough to bring another salary home, if that makes sense. So I had to get creative. And I originally started selling beef, and I still sell beef on the side. But really, I looked at the needs of my area, and we didn't really have a good hotel. We have a hotel, but it's not something I would want to stay in per se. So I wanted to create a space where people could come and visit their family if they're coming for the holidays or needing a place to stay overnight or whatever it might be. So it originally started out Airbnb being my house. This was before I was married, before I had kiddos or anything like that. So I would go stay with my parents whenever someone rented my house. And I didn't, you're young, you don't have a lot of personal items that really they matter, but not a huge, it's just at the end of the day, it's things. So I'd go and I'd run over, stay at my parents' house, and did I know I was going to be kicked out of my house like 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month. And so I was like, okay, this is a need in my area. And I knew I was eventually going to transition into something else. So I started looking at the structures we had on our operation. Like, what are we not utilizing that I could convert into like a cheap space, upscale space, So I had this grain bin on my property, and I was like, I'm just going to turn this grain bin into an Airbnb. And it kind of went along with the wedding venue. And I didn't think I would get the Airbnb up and running as quickly as I did, just capital and investment, stuff like that. So once we had the Airbnb or the wedding venue going online, about a year later, we finished a grain bin and turned it into an Airbnb. So, and it helps. It provides additional income to your operation, whether it's booked a week and a month or 3 out of the 4 weeks of a month. It just depends on the season and kind of what's going on. But it's all additional revenue to our operation, and it really doesn't take. I also created it to make sure it was going to fit my schedule. We're busy farming and ranching most of the time. We don't have time to clean 24/7 or host all the time, especially during calving season, the busy seasons. So I created a small space for it to, like, it only requires me an hour of my time to clean usually. And that helps a lot. It's not a big extravagant space that goes a lot of additional work into it. So that's kind of the story on why I started an Airbnb and how it kind of fell into my lap. I never saw myself having an Airbnb, but I just saw the need in my area, and that's kind of where it birthed at.
So what is driving people to your area that this has become so successful? Because that's one
Mhm.
thing I wonder. I think about where I'm at, and I think, okay, so during hunting season, I could definitely see something like that going over well, but other times of the year, I
Mhm.
kind of question it. So what's driving people to your area?
For sure. I live in a very desolate area. Like, the nearest Walmart is 80 miles away. Denver's 5 hours, Wichita's 4, Amarillo's 3.5. So it's very remote where I'm at. And I kind of thought the same thing. I'm like, what in the world are people going to be coming to my area for? And it's definitely busier during hunting season, deer season, that kind of stuff, bird season. We do have more bookings then. But a lot of times it's just people stopping through, like just needing a stop before I go to Colorado Springs or Denver to the mountains, wherever they might be traveling from, or vice versa. They're going back home, and we're kind of a nice in between spot. There's not a lot of Airbnbs. There's not a lot of hotels to stop and stay, and a lot of this attraction, because it's a glorified glamping experience. So there's no bathroom in the grain bin. You have access to a bathroom in the Round Top, which is right next door. So we advertise it as a glamping experience, and we get a lot of outdoorsy people. And over the years, that's kind of where it started, but it's evolved to so much more now. And I don't know if that's pertaining to the marketing I've been doing on social media with the Airbnb, but a lot of people are craving getting away from the city. They're craving getting back to the roots of outdoors and seeing a ranch or a farm in action, or waking up to cows in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'll have people even from Garden City come down for a date night, or Liberal or Dodge City or Lamar, Colorado. And they're not big cities. They have a Walmart, but they're not your Denvers. They're not your Wichitas. So it's been really interesting to see that shift over the last 4 years.
Folks, if you enjoyed this short conversation, be sure to listen to the full episode on casual cattle conversations. You can find this podcast right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast player. Happy ranching.